They don't want to be stuck in a tin can with freaks. Pretty much, I agreed. Way too late for that. I sighed. We tapped pop bottles, sipped, watched the clouds sail slowly across the Wisconsin sky. We were sprawled on bleachers on the north side of the track outside of our school, James Madison Memorial High. It was September 10th, but it felt like mid-July because of a freak heat wave that turned everything into a sauna. Humidity and temperature in the 80s. Forget anything that involved moving. Sweating was a theme. The only easy thing to do was talk. "This is really happening?" asked Herc. "Yeah." "Going to Mars?" "Yeah." He shook his head, grinned, and took a long swallow. "Oh, please," I said. "If you're going to give me the same old 'you're going to die up there' speech, save it. I'm tired of—" "Nah," Herc said. "Even I'm tired of hearing that crap, and I'm staying here." "Okay. I'm just wondering what you're going to do about them." He used his bottle to point to the crowd on the other side of the chain-link fence, behind the cops and their wooden sawhorse barricades. The sunlight flashed on hundreds of cameras, cell phone and professional. Broadcast towers rose above the 7 news vans parked on the street. There was a bunch of protesters, too. There always were, ever since Mars One started. Some were just whack jobs who seemed to like to yell at anyone who was doing something interesting. Some were people who wanted to try and get onto the news, even if it was via a photobomb. Some, though, were religious nuts who seemed to think going to Mars was somehow against God. Not sure how that worked, though. Those protesters were always there. What I was looking for were the really scary ones. The ones who always wore white robes and red bandanas. The ones who called themselves the Neo-Luddites. Those guys were freaky, but I knew they wouldn't be on school grounds. The Neo-Luddites usually only showed up at official mission events or sometimes when we were filming an episode for one of the reality shows. The Neo-Luddites were a deeply weird kind of extremist group. Not exactly religious. I mean, they weren't fundamentalists the way you'd think. It's hard to explain them because they mostly talked about what they didn't believe in and what they were afraid of, but not really much at all about what they did believe in. As far as I could tell, there were 2 kinds of them. Most of their group wasn't violent. They were organized and persistent, but they didn't cause a ruckus at events. But there was a smaller bunch that was way dangerous. No one in the press or military or in Mars One could seem to decide if they were an official part of the Neo-Luddites or a separate splinter group who just used that name. But that bunch didn't just stand around and wave signs. They sent an actual hit team out to place magnetic limpet mines on the hull of one of the SpaceX sea launch stations. The bombs had some kind of special trembler switch that was triggered by the exhaust blast when the SpaceX team test-fired one of the new Falcon Heavy rockets. 17 people were killed, blown to bits, and another 30 were hurt, some really bad. The 4-person Neo-Luddite team was killed too. No one can tell if it was a suicide attack or if they got caught in their own blast by accident. Dead either way. The authorities used DNA from some of the body parts they fished out of the water to identify one man who was known to have ties to the Neo-Luddites, and when accusations were made, the Neo-Luddite goofballs didn't deny it. They didn't admit it, either. What they did was post photos of the murdered SpaceX people on their website with the heading, "Betray the trust, pay the price." The trust? They never came right out and said what that meant. Everyone on the news had been beating each other up with theories. That was the first attack. After that, the Neo-Luddites were tied to some other bombings, of a parts manufacturer making equipment for Virgin Galactic, an electronics firm building a guidance system for space dev, a metallurgy plant making hull sections under contract to Arca Space Corporation, and the chemical processing plant in China that makes fuel for the Shenzhou program. More people were killed, and every program upped its security game by a factor of 10. Definitely Mars One did. The mission shrinks grilled every single candidate 6 ways from Sunday. Lie detector tests, wave after wave of psych evals, questioning by cops from Interpol. It was scary as hell. All through it, I felt sweaty and guilty.